Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. Today is going to be a show about training. More specifically, the reality is that nothing has changed in the area of resistance training in over 200 years. I mean, yeah, we have machines with pulleys and cams and all that sort of stuff that are designed to take better advantage of gravity. And let's be honest, it's all about gravity, right? 45-pound plate is heavier than a 10-pound plate because of gravity's force on it. And we know that barbells and dumbbells have limitations because gravity acts on them differently depending on the arc of the curve of your motion. So then we came out with machines and pulley machines. They basically still take advantage of gravity, but the weight is in a stack, or it's attached somewhere on the device, and it's still using gravity to create the resistance that you feel in the handles if you're gripping handles and whatever. And we have computers now, and you would think that, wow, can't we use computers to create some sort of logic that would affect the resistance so that we can take better advantage of it? Yes. No one's really been able to do it, but ARX. We're going to talk about them today. It's fascinating. I believe that ARX is at the threshold of a completely new paradigm in resistance training. And we're going to get into that during the show. It's fascinating, and you should be aware of it if you're not already. We have to thank our title sponsor, of course, and that's Legendary Foods. I get a lot of people telling me that they have a hard time with Legendary Foods tasty pastries in the house because their kids want to eat them all. And I've been talking about this. Your kids will not eat a quote-unquote healthy protein bar instead of a Twix or a Snickers bar. But they will eat tasty pastries because they taste so good. You'll eat them because of the way they taste, but you'll benefit from them because they have less than 1 gram of sugar and 20 grams of high-quality protein. There's nothing out there today like the tasty pastry. In fact, a lot of people themselves who continue to eat protein bars because they fit their dietary guidelines are abandoning protein bars for the tasty pastry because, quite frankly, they taste better than protein bars to even those of us who are willing to eat crap because it's good for us. Nothing like it. Multitude of flavors. The product is amazing. If you haven't tried it, you've been living under a rock. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary. Use the code SHR10 to receive 10% off your purchase. While you're there, shop around. They have seasoned almonds. They have flavored nut butters. Also, their flavored nut butters have no sugar in them whatsoever. You won't believe that either. They're masters of making things taste like they're not good for you when they're actually good for you. Okay, now let me bring my guest, Jim Keene, on the show. Welcome to the show, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So I know Jim because I have an ARX machine at home. I'm fortunate. I'm very lucky. And Jim was the guy who taught me how to use it. And because it's so different and because there's computers involved, there are things that you need to understand about how to use it to the best of your ability. But it's really an amazing thing. How did this start, Jim? Who came up with this idea that, hey, we could do it better if we use computers in there too?
Well, there's nothing new under the sun. And we know, for instance, that Arthur Jones, the inventor of Nautilus, we know that he was messing around with motors back in the 80s and even into the 70s, but the technology of the time hadn't caught up. we couldn't get it small enough, couldn't get it affordable enough. And so finally, in machine design, everyone's trying to, how do we get less friction? When you plumb the weight stack, we want less friction. We want it smoother, less friction, less friction. And you can't ever quite get there. And so finally someone said, well, what if it was just all friction? What if it was 100% friction? What if you just flipped it back? So it's like an elegant solution. And so the first prototype was late 2008, early 2009, maybe. And then let's see. Yeah. So that was when the first prototype existed of what would eventually become ARX. And just kind of took it from there. And my story of how I was a customer before I worked for the company. I was a trumpet player. That was my first career. So I would be on these Broadway tours, traveling around. That's kind of how I spent my 20s. It's a great way to spend your 20s. But I decided I needed a hobby because I wouldn't do anything all day. And so I just played the show at night. And so I got really interested in reading about Arthur Jones and read the Nautilus bulletins. And that led down the rabbit hole with the people we know and love, the Doug McGuffs and the Mike Mentzers, and it's all an ecosystem. And so then I saw a video of the prototype of what would become ARX. I saw just a YouTube video of Mark Alexander, our founder, taking Doug McGuff through a set of leg press on this prototype. And I'm just thinking, how come no one knows about this? This solves every problem that I just learned about in all the writings that I was doing at that point. So then I got to try it in 2011. I was in San Antonio on tour. I took a rental car, went up, met Mark, got a workout, and it, blew my mind. And then 2013 was when I got off the road and I purchased the first version of the ARX Omni, the one that runs on cables. And I put it in a little 1-bedroom crappy apartment in Chicago and started charging people $20 cash to come to my apartment and work out on my robot.
Brilliant. That was brilliant. Here, let's put a picture up of your transformation.
There's a strapping lad.
When you bought your first ARX machine, and there's 2016 after you had been training with it for 3 years.
Yeah. The funny part about this is if you just look at the relative width between shoulders and head. So my head's taken up half of the total length of my shoulders in the picture on the left. And then 3 years later, a few years on, very different. And this looks, when I look at this now, I think this is probably pretty typical for somebody who starts strength training seriously. That looks normal. That looks doable. That's not a crazy transformation. But
you use the ARX machine exclusively, right?
Correct. And the time commitment during that time was 1 weekly workout that lasted right around 15 minutes. So it's the same effect. Strength training is strength training. You're still like cutting the grass is cutting the grass, but you can use scissors or a lawnmower. So you're still getting the same result. It's just one is far safer and it doesn't take as much time and so forth and so on. So yeah, that was once a week leading up to that vacation. I might have thrown in a high volume, 2 times a week. So the high volume version of ARX just to build some more mass. But it was real set it and forget it.
Now the difference between this once a week and a lot of the things that you see like on YouTube where there's guys who are hawking a training style and they say, oh, you just 5 minutes a day and you're going to change your life. And they don't. The difference is that just 3 reps is exhausting. I want to make that like I want people to understand, like when you do 8 reps on this machine, it's heroic because 3 reps and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is too hard. It's really amazing. And I want to tell you what I came up with. Slow state cardio has been the mainstay for cardio for decades. And then somebody figured out that doing interval sprinting was actually better for you than just drudging away for an hour on the treadmill. In fact, if you want to obliterate visceral fat, sprinting does it. Sprinting actually targets. It's like, from an evolutionary perspective, sprinting tells the body, oh, wow, our environment is demanding we need to upregulate everything we can to meet the requirements. And so we learned that sprinting for 8 seconds and walking for a minute 5 or 6 times is much more effective than just walking for an hour. Now, I'm not saying that walking for an hour doesn't have a value. Well, ARX is to resistance training what sprinting is to cardio. You are all out for 7 to 10 seconds, depending on what your reps are set at. You are all out. You are using every fiber of muscle that you can in the direction of force for that 7-8 seconds. And after you do that just 3 times, you're like, what? I got to do 5 more reps? Yeah, you do.
This is nonsense. I got 5 more of these. Yeah, and when you dig down, the active ingredient of what you just talked about, the reason that jogging is a better effect than walking, that running is a better effect than jogging, that sprinting is a better effect than just running, is the active ingredient is the quality of the work with the muscle that's involved. And so with ARX, and just for people who aren't familiar, it's we use a motor. And so, Carl, you were talking about gravity being a form of resistance for so many different things, and gravity has those inherent limitations. Our strength changes during a repetition, during the course of a set. So our strength changes from the beginning to the end. That's the first big way. We're way stronger at the beginning than we are at the end. It changes from negative to positive, the concentric and eccentric. We're all way stronger in the eccentric than we are in the concentric. And then the third way is the different joint angles. You move into and out of mechanical advantage as you travel through a range of motion. So those are the 3 ways. With gravity, you can never perfectly match the resistance being used to the changing strength of the person doing the resistance training. So ARX's motor allows us to provide what we're calling adaptive resistance, which means moment by moment, the machine is responding to you at all times. So then back to the active ingredient conversation, the highest possible quality of muscle contraction, seemingly, is as hard as you can go all of the time. There's no way to get more intense than voluntary maximum effort throughout the entire range of motion at every joint angle, concentrically and eccentrically, starting from the very first rep of the very first set. So you don't have to underload yourself. And with gravity, it's like the walking and sprinting. With gravity as your form of resistance, you are compelled to underload yourself. We describe it as 80% of my 1 rep max, or I'm going to use 60% of my 1 rep max. Like, we do it on purpose because everyone knows if we properly loaded it, it's called a 1 rep max. And then my set's over after 1 rep. Can't do that. That's a non-starter. So I need to reduce the amount of weight I'm using, which is a bummer, makes it less effective, just so I can go for longer for my 8 to 12 reps or 2 minutes or whatever it is I'm doing. And so with ARX, we don't have to do that. We can go at maximum. It's the sprinting, like you talked about. It's the intervals versus the steady state. And so it's as high intensity as you can voluntarily go right away and the whole time. Oh, hey, Carl, I'm not hearing you.
Yeah, I ordered a new soundboard, but everything is, unavailable right now in this supply chain problem.
Sitting in a shipping container in the Pacific right now or something.
Yeah. Did you hear about the $5 million worth of ammunition they seized going into the Ukraine coming from the United States?
I bet they seized that. Yeah, we'll take this.
All Remington rounds. How did Remington get involved in becoming a national arms dealer, international? Anyway,
Yeah.
But yeah, I have some supply chain issues right now. But anyway, what's happening is that, like, my first 2 reps are my strongest, and my 3rd rep is pretty close. But then 4th, 5th, and 6th, I have to choose not to push as hard because I just don't have it. And so my goal is to be able to push as hard on rep 4, eventually, push as hard on rep 5. But the strength comes very fast with this. And it's really fascinating. So we've all dreamed of this. If you have a training buddy and you're doing curls, if you can curl 80 pounds, you could probably resist 120. So he's putting his hands on the bar and pushing it down. We've tried to do this, but we've never been able to do it systematically. ARX does it systematically. Everything you have in the push movement, it takes. And then everything you have in the resisting the weight from moving again, it takes. It's really, I really believe it triggers some other mechanisms. So Dr. Malin Watfi came on my show years ago and talked about his book of doves, diplomats, and diabetes. And he talked about that risk actually triggers things in the brain that cause you to repartition nutrition after you eat, because we probably had to chase this animal and we put our own lives in harm's way to catch the animal. And then when you eat it, you want that nutrition to feed the ability for your body to adapt, so the next time you have to do this, you're better at it. And that's in simplest terms of what his book talks about. There's a sense of risk when you're trying to resist that press. If you're doing a chest press, and you give it everything you got to go out. Oh man. And now the work really begins, because now you got to keep it from coming back.
Right.
There's a sense of risk in that. You're not going to get hurt, but it's like, oh my God, this weight could kill me if it wanted to. You know what I mean?
Right. The robot, I'm glad they're on our side for now. I think this is how Skynet starts. Some guy doing a chest press and cussing, and the robot doesn't like it. But I think the idea of placing a demand on the body, letting the body know your reserves are insufficient. And so now a change must be catalyzed, must be provoked. You have to provoke the body into change. So
Right.
during the eccentric, in the example you gave, when the machine's coming at you and you're resisting in the chest press, trying to, in your mind, you're saying, I'm going to stay still. I'm not going to let this thing move me. And then, of course, 2 horsepower, it moves you through your eccentric, and you are made then to produce the maximum amount of force. But to your point, you're failing the whole time.
Yes.
You're trying to stay still, and you're not able to do it. And so subsequently, as you recover and sleep and eat, and those nutrients get partitioned into whatever strategy the body is going to employ to try to keep this from happening next time. So that's more bone density. That's greater all upregulation of all the enzymes involved in the entire process, from glycolysis and through the Krebs cycle. And that cycle, it's muscle mass, it's hypertrophy, the motor units that innervate, the nerves that innervate those involved motor units, they get upregulated as well. So it's just about placing a demand, making the body feel a threat, but using technology so that there exists no threat.
Right.
We're doing it on purpose for a specific goal.
Right. So Aiden Ray says, is there an eccentric phase? Yes, there is.
Oh, you better believe so.
And the eccentric phase is much more difficult than the concentric. So when I do rows, I'm pulling and pulling and pulling. I've got my feet pressed against the bars, and I'm giving it everything I got, and that takes everything I have. And then all of a sudden I go, oh crap! Now I have to resist it, and I'm trying to hold on to that thing, and it's just stretching me out. It's 2 horsepower. It's stretching me out, but my body is fighting it every millimeter of the way.
Yeah, and so you're matched all time. So, and in answer the question, there's both, and regular strength training has both concentric and eccentric, right? But if you lift 225, you have to lower 225, just because of the limitations of the tool you've chosen, a barbell.
Right.
So here, if you lift 225, you can lower 315, let's say, and it'll give it to you right away. And there have been different attempts to do this, to give people more on the negative than the positive, but that's variable resistance, but it's still not adaptive resistance. Our data show that your eccentric peaks and your concentric peaks, that relationship between eccentric and concentric, it changes with every rep, because the eccentric strength fatigues a lot more slowly than the concentric strength. So this gap between negative and positive grows as the set continues. So if you have, and there are companies out there making all kinds of really cool tools, but if you say, I want to give them 40% more on the negative, that might be appropriate on the first rep, but it's inappropriate on the second rep. You're once again underloading people, which is a bummer, because with a weight, even a variable resistance, you're either underloaded or overloaded. So it's either inefficient or dangerous, respectively.
Right.
And you can't get around it. So yes, there's a negative on ARX, and it is always 1-to-1 equal with whatever it is you're capable of producing as you resist the irresistible force.
And that's the nice thing, right? So one day you're stronger. If you're trying to facilitate this type of a response using barbells and dumbbells and even training partners to create some additional resistance, it's never going to be what ARX does, because ARX is sensing what you're doing in milliseconds. And it's just, and what's happening is everything you have on rep 3, like you said, is different than what you had on rep 2, and it's going to be different than you have on rep 4. And it automatically gives you everything. It maximizes everything that you can handle. And, Ron Penna, a good friend of mine, has an ARX machine in his home gym.
Yeah.
That's where I first saw it. And he told me, he said, like Ron and I train pretty much the same. I still go to the gym and I do metabolic work. I'm using weights to raise my heart rate and to raise my metabolic rate. But then I do 2-a-days. I go home later in the evening and then I'll do a push-pull session on the ARX machine. And that's not really contributing to metabolic conditioning, but it's contributing to strength purely. It's building strength purely. And the strength comes fast on the ARX machine, doesn't it?
Well, you get what we call newbie gains all over again. So we've had this phenomenon whereby seasoned lifters, people have been weightlifting for 10, 20 years, when they start using ARX, they start to have gains in strength and gains in mass that are reminiscent of when they were in their teen years. Because if you show up, you're 15, you walk into the high school weight room and you're just messing around and you get newbie gains, you start growing because it's a brand new level of mechanical tension applied to the body. So now you've been lifting 20 years and you try ARX. Well, what are these eccentric contractions? Well, it's a brand new magnitude of mechanical tension that you were not able to access with a weight, even very, very heavy weights. Again, if you can, let's say you're using 405 for reps, you're still only lowering 405 when you probably could be lowering 600-700 pounds.
Right.
But you're never going to put 600-700 pounds on the bar and try to mess around with it. It's dangerous and impractical. So with ARX, we get, newbie gains all over again. And, the strength adaptation is proportionate to the magnitude of mechanical tension to which were applied. So if you have these matched negatives, these matched eccentrics, and we see it on the graph, these giant big peaks in force that, like you described, you rapidly increase. And like you saw the gray line in the software, there's your previous performance is
right
up on the screen. So you're juxtaposed against your previous performance and you're fighting you versus you. So each time you're stronger, and it's quantifiable and systematized.
And that's the thing. It gives you an incentive to hold on just a little bit longer because you just want to make that peak last a little bit longer than the last time you did this movement. It's really funny.
It's very distasteful to lose to a previous version of yourself. So
yeah. Now, I want to take a break, but when we come back, I want to talk about some of the research. We were supposed to have an actual scientist on the show who has published some studies about ARX. But unfortunately, he was not able to make it, but he'll be on the next time. We'll do another interview with him specifically. But I want to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, I want to talk about the actual science behind ARX because we have some nice graphics to put up and talk to people about, okay?
Right on.
If you want to learn more about ARX, go to shrnetwork.biz/ARX. Tell them that Carl sent you. It's not an impulse buy, I will tell you that. But I think they also do now offer some financing to make it easier for people to get into and reduces it to about the cost of a gym membership. But it's at your own home and you could train when you want. And you can train a couple times a day if you're young enough and you can recover fast enough. Hell, just train a couple times a day and watch what happens. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Being superhuman means being conscientious about the choices we make. White Oak Pastures is superhuman when it comes to raising livestock. They're committed to animal welfare, land regeneration, and rural revival. They responsibly manage the entire process from the pasture to your doorstep. High-quality, pasture-raised, great-tasting meat from a farm you can trust. Full nose-to-tail selections. They even have options for your pet. Go to shrnetwork.biz/whiteoak and use the code SUPERHUMAN to save 10% off your entire first order. Remember those rectangular toasted pastries you used to love when you were a kid? Well, Legendary Foods has just made them better. The new cake-style tasty pastry is like nothing you've ever had before. With 20 grams of high-quality protein and less than 1 gram of sugar, you'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off your purchase of tasty pastries. Now available in cookies and cream, red velvet cake, birthday cake, blueberry, strawberry, Legendary, Brown Sugar Cinnamon, and Hot Fudge Sundae. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use code SHR10 today. The holidays are over and it's time to set your eyes on new goals for the new year. In the thick of winter and sick season, it's more important than ever to support your immune system so that you are strong, healthy, and able to tackle your 2022 goals. Did you know that one of the biggest ways you can boost your immunity is by supporting your gut health? It's true. In fact, 70% of your immune system is in your gut. That's why it's time to get Biome Breakthrough. Biome Breakthrough has powerful probiotics, prebiotics, as well as a one-of-a-kind ingredient called IGY Max. IGY Max is a patented egg-based protein that enhances gut health, reverses damage caused by antibiotics, and even helps with immunity threats. By taking Biome Breakthrough daily, you'll eliminate good bacteria, build up your immunity, and repair your gut lining all at the same time. Go to shrnetwork.biz/biome and use code SHR for 10% off and get a full year, no questions asked satisfaction guarantee. Verso contains potent compounds proven to increase NAD+. NAD+ is arguably the most important molecule in the body, and without it, you would die in less than 30 seconds. It's responsible for a number of physiological processes, one being that it guides longevity genes called sirtuins to direct cells in the body to perform their jobs. NAD+ levels drop with age, and when they're low, there isn't enough to guide sirtuins, so your cells start to break down. This explains why the body ages and consequently wrinkles appear. There is less benefit to exercise, it takes longer to recover, and an older body is not resilient like a young body. Start reversing biological age now. Go to shrnetwork.biz/verso and use the code SHR for 20% off plus free shipping on your bottle of Verso today. I would easily say that I am the hugest proponent you will ever meet to doing anything that will improve the quality of my sleep. And that's because sleep is linked to just about every metabolic disorder we see in our population today. One of the easiest things you can do to improve the quality of your sleep is to get a pillow that can be shaped into the exact form factor that allows you to get your best night's sleep. And that is MyPillow. I've been sleeping with MyPillow for a few years now, and I can tell you that when I have to travel and stay in hotels, I don't get a good night's sleep because I don't have MyPillow with me. Right now, you can save up to 60% off of everything offered to improve the quality of your sleep at shrnetwork.biz/mypillow when you use the code SHR. Or you can call toll-free 800-889-4938. And remember to use code SHR to save up to 60% off of everything at their website. MK Supplements grass-fed beef liver is from 100% pasture-raised New Zealand cattle. Unlike other manufacturers, they use a gentle freeze-drying method to turn fresh liver into a powder before filling it into gelatin capsules. Additionally, they don't use hexane or any other harsh chemicals to defat their organ meat. From the glass container and metal lid they use to package their products to the recyclable shipping materials they use for delivery, their goal is to provide the highest quality, most eco-friendly supplements on the market. Go to shrnetwork.biz/liver and use code SUPERHUMAN to receive 15% off your order today.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. We're ripped and we're ready.
Welcome back. Better resistance, better results. We're here with Jim Keene from ARX Fit. So Jim, there are two models currently of the ARX machine, correct?
Correct. Yep, we got the Alpha and the Omni. So if you're looking at this image, the Omni is the one on the right, the Alpha is the one on the left. Now they share the same software and they share the same drive system. So the same force is on either. It's adaptive resistance for both, same motor, same chain, same everything. And the difference is, I like to give the analogy of a difference between automatic transmission and manual transmission. The masses can all drive automatic transmission. It's all the shifting's done for you. And if you're a car guy, if you're like an enthusiast, if you want a little bit more versatility and control, well, you want a manual. You want some paddle shifting. You want a little bit more like that. So on the left, the Alpha, where she's doing the leg press, that is built around the leg press, the chest press, and the row. There's a couple auxiliary movements you can do, but it's built around the big three. GTFO fitness, as we say. So you get in, it's three movements, a full body workout from one seat, just dead simple. So anyone from grandmothers to linebackers, they can use the Alpha for the every benefit possible from ARX. But if you're like me and you know your way around a weight room, well, you're going to want to spend a little bit more time on the Omni. The Omni has a couple dozen different movements you can do. It runs on cables. So it's got all the bells and whistles, all the different angles. It's a belt squat, deadlift, 4 angles of pressing: overhead, incline, horizontal, decline. And you can hang whatever you want from that top tower, tricep press down rope, pull down attachments of any kind, and so forth. So that's the overview of the 2 models that we offer.
So I'm thinking I can start doing curls with mine because I have the Omni, the more compact one, if you will.
Oh, the Alpha.
Alpha, I'm sorry. I have the Alpha. It's a more compact one. I'm thinking that if I got a straight bar or even a cambered bar that's designed for a pulley machine, I could take the rowing grip off and I can push against and do a curl while sitting. What do you think?
Correct. There's 2 ways to do that. We've seen, people, it's just like an eyelet in the middle, right? So you can clip whatever. And so we've seen people do like a preacher curl style where you put your elbows into your upper leg and you're doing like that. Or we've seen people recline the seat and you're laid back. So it's more like a standing barbell curl, except you're reclined. So we've seen people have different, and then concentration curl. If you have a little handle that you can just plant your elbow and now you're doing one arm at a time, you could do concentration curls with it. So we've seen people kind of adapt it to their needs like that as well.
So what setting? So would I use a rowing movement then? I would use like a back movement to do curls with it?
Yeah, in the different buttons you can press in the exercise selection screen. The best way that we found to do it is pick something you don't do, like torso flexion. Let's say you don't ever do that. Well, okay, you go into torso flexion so you can save the data, and then you just do a bicep curl and leave a note in there that says bicep curl. And so there's a notes function where you can leave that. So that way you know that on your profile, the flexion movement is actually we're doing bicep curls.
Now, let's talk about the torso flexion movements. I mean, those are for core strength, right?
Yep, it's for the rectus abdominis, and same principle as all the other movements where it's concentric, that's matched to you. And then at the bottom, when you're curled, you're doing a trunk curl. And so when you're all the way curled up, you're flexing your abs and you're intending to not let it uncurl you. And then it it moves you back, and big, nice, eccentric tearing up of the rectus. And so it's pretty targeted. It's a burner.
Let's talk about some of this research we have here. So anabolic versus catabolic states. You guys just talk me through this and I'll put the slides up. How was that going?
Yeah. So the premise, the how exercise works slide, that's foundational for us. It puts the lie to the notion that more is better when it comes to working out. And people kind of intellectually understand, yeah, I know more is not necessarily better, but why not? Why can't I just do more of the workout to get more of a result? And this little yellow brick road sort of pathway describes why. Because number one, the stimulus, that's the workout. And it's like Brad Schoenfeld's research from his meta-analyses that identified mechanical tension, muscle damage, and metabolic stress as the 3 primary elements of the workout stimulus for strength, for hypertrophy, for conditioning, etc. So that's the workout. That's step 1. Nothing good happens in step 1, as you can see. It's catabolic. And you see over on the slide to the left, the difference, anabolic, catabolic, both are important and they need to be in balance. Number 1, the stimulus is catabolic. Nothing is directly produced in the workout. In fact, the only thing you can produce directly during a workout is an injury if you do it right. But regardless, so you're dumping glycogen. There's chemical draining of the muscles. You're tearing up muscle fiber. You're applying mechanical tension. All this happens in step 1, and you require only enough to provoke an adaptive response. Step 2 is where the magic happens. That's where the good stuff happens. That's where you actually produce the adaptive response. You become stronger. You improve your metabolic capacity. That all happens with enough relaxation, nutrition, and sleep. So if you had to apply more is better to somewhere along this this chart, it would be step 2. So you should be sleeping more, dialing in your nutrition better, de-stressing with meditation or with journaling or with whatever strategies you have. Most people, when they want to get step 3, the results, the adaptations, if they want to maximize that, many people make the mistake of maximizing step 1. I'm going to work out more. I'm going to work out for longer. I'm going to do more stuff. And they have too much catabolic activity and not enough anabolic activity. Step 1 is catabolic. Step 2 is anabolic, and they need to be in balance for the continued balance of for the continued thriving and prosperity of the organism as it produces all that stuff in step 3. So that's just kind of an overview of why our stimulus is so targeted and why so little is required. Because more is not better. In fact, more can be counterproductive. And so you have diminishing returns.
But intensity, when it comes to intensity, so what you're talking about is training more often, training for longer periods. Like Lee Haney said, stimulate, don't annihilate. You know, he said if you're training for longer than 45 minutes, you're doing something wrong. And he built an amazing physique. So to echo what we've known, training longer isn't really beneficial, but when you are training, you want intensity, correct?
Correct. And it has to be in balance. If you go low intensity, it can work, but it's going to take you a long, long time. If you're cutting your grass with scissors, you can do it. It's just going to take a really long time. Or I like to use the analogy like beer and whiskey. It's same effect, same active ingredient, same effect. You just require far less of the whiskey because it's distilled. So ARX, we've with our intensity, we have more mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage of all in greater magnitudes available to us with the technology. So it's the same thing. If you're going to go hard, you can't go for long. If you want to go long, you can't go for that intense.
That's
and
hard.
so
You can't go that
you need to make it make sense. You can't go long and hard. And if you're doing low intensity stuff, it's going to take you longer. So which one do you want?
So let's move to this next slide. So this says what you need to know. When researchers compared adaptive resistance training workouts to traditional resistance training programs, they found that participants who performed adaptive resistance training lost a higher percentage of body fat and made greater improvements in VO2 max than those who performed traditional resistance training. Additionally, the adaptive training sessions were highly time efficient, lasting on average about 15 minutes, whereas the traditional resistance training sessions lasted 45 minutes. So what you're basically saying here is training with greater intensity, but for less time, actually the body responds better to it all the way around, both fat and muscle.
Correct. And it also matters with what are you being so intense? If both groups, and for some context, for those who don't know, this is kind of a synopsis of a study that was published just this past fall, and it got written up in the ACE journal, the American Council on Exercise, and we're going to talk about it a little bit coming up here. But the idea is using ARX, having adaptive resistance, it's access to these greater levels of mechanical tension that make it possible to get the same or better results than someone who's just lifting weights. And so we randomized two groups out, or three groups. They had a control group. But the two treatment groups, one was given the ACE generic strength training protocol that they would recommend if you're just beginning a strength training program. So it was nothing special for any particular purpose. It's just general strength training program. And it was 10 movements. At I think it was 70% of 1 rep max, and they had 45 minutes to do those 10 movements. And the ARX group was just the alpha, so not the bells and whistles, just the alpha, just the simpler, the automatic transmission in my example from before. 6 movements. It took 15 minutes to do, and then at the end of the 12, well, here I'm going to read you off. I have it pulled up. We had a little blog post I wrote about some of the results after they did a 1 rep max and a 5 rep max test of those 10 movements, the 10 weightlifting movements. And like you saw there, the ARX group, the VO2 max and fat loss, that was a cool kind of unexpected result. But the ARX group, let's see, I'm going to read off some bullet points. The ARX group saw almost twice the strength gains of the weightlifting group after 12 weeks. This is in a 1 rep max test and a 5 rep max test. So almost double. This is my favorite part. Over the 12 weeks, the weightlifting group exercised for a total of 21 hours. And the ARX group was for a total of 6 hours. So that's 72% less time exercising in the ARX group. And so keep that in mind, 21 hours versus 6 hours over the course of the 12 weeks. The ARX group achieved 2.5 times the fat loss of the weightlifting group. The ARX group added twice the amount of lean mass that the weightlifting group added.
Wow.
So they both gained muscle, but the ARX group gained twice the amount of muscle compared to the weightlifting group. The ARX group achieved 4.2 times the waist circumference decrease of the weightlifting group. So they both had a waist circumference decrease on average, but 4.2 times is not small. The ARX group achieved 2.6 times the body fat percentage decrease compared to the weightlifting group. The ARX group achieved 3.5 times the VO2 max increase of the weightlifting group. And then, so a good synopsis, ARX showed 90% better strength results than weightlifting in 28% of the time commitment. So
That's
all that,
fascinating.
yeah, and we're looking, and there's charts at the end of the study that are just kind of funny. There's the control group is nothing, and then the weightlifting group has this little bar, and then the ARX group is this big goofy looking, it almost didn't seem real. But when you realize, back to what we were saying before, the active ingredients in strength training, mechanical tension, muscle damage, metabolic stress, when you can maximize all three without compromise, you're going to have a better result. With weights, you have to compromise.
But maximize them in a shorter period of time, because remember, the longer you train, the more catabolic you become, right? That's why Lee Haney focused on that 45 minutes. He surmised that you weren't stimulating the muscle breakdown to the degree that you were stimulating the impetus to muscle growth. And so,
right,
you know, ARX allows you to get all that intensity, like a sprint. You know, if you sprint, you can't sprint forever. You sprint for 20 seconds, some of us 8, 10, but it's everything you need because you're all out.
Yeah, it's everybody out of the pool, and it's a sprint for whatever the target musculature is. And so a little bit goes a long way. And a lot of people get into like, well, how often can I do this? Can I go 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a week? And I always like to say, like, half of a sure thing is better than twice of nothing. So once or twice per week, that way you're spending more time recovered and feeling good and building rather than recovering from my ARX workout where I just got tore up and now here I am back at it 2 days later.
Well,
cool,
I have to say something here. So many of us, I'm on HRT. I take 2 IUs of growth hormone 5 days a week, the A4M prescribed dosage. So I have to believe that I'll recover faster than the average 63-year-old.
Absolutely.
So I probably can push a little bit harder with ARX, and still make gains, right?
Yeah. So your step 2 on that chart, your step 2 is that's where the more is better, and that's what you've done. And so so if there's a like teenage, like a high school football team, those guys, they can do ARX 3 times a week, full body, and crush it and be good. Anybody on a cycle of something, they're going to be good. Anybody on TRT or some exogenous help for step 2 there, absolutely. That's some of the situations in which you can do more, and your recovery ability is still going to be matched to your stimulus. If your step 2 is if you're not sleeping well, if you're not on any exogenous stuff, if you're not eating right, once per week is probably all you can handle, because it takes you that many days to recover because you haven't optimized. So someone like you who's optimized like you are, you can do it more frequently without overwhelming your body's recovery capacity.
So let's go to these other 2 slides here. I guess these speak about these are about the study, right?
Correct. So the body measurements and the cardiorespiratory outcomes, those were more surprising to us, and we kind of want to focus on those. We sort of already knew what would happen. Yes, you're going to get stronger because you're having more mechanical tension, especially during the eccentric. So not a surprise.
I'm surprised about VO2 max, that it was even affected at all.
Right. And so this goes back to a lot of the Body by Science, a lot of Dr. Doug McGuff material that he collated into that book with John Little. The VO2 max, the ability to use the oxygen, he explains very eloquently in that book that the cardiorespiratory system serves the working muscles. So if you are maximally working your muscles with the highest quality resistance, it does, in theory, make sense that you would improve those outcomes, the VO2 max. And the change is not happening. The improvement is not happening in the heart and lungs. The improvement is happening at the muscle level as the fuel comes in, the efficiency with which you can use the fuel. And so that kind of makes sense. It's just kind of stark to see it borne out so clearly in this study. It was like more than 3 times the improvement of VO2 max because the ARX group was going at maximum. They were doing that sprint like you were talking about. It's a sprint for each of those individual muscle groups. It's like that old study. I forget even who did it, but it was elegant. They had the one-legged bicycle study, the ergometer study.
I didn't know that one.
They take people, they randomize some groups, and they got everyone's VO2 max, left leg and right leg on an ergometer. And they had one group exercise or sorry, they did both legs and took their VO2 max. And then one of the groups, they only had them train one leg. And 12 weeks later, what they found was that the VO2 max in that group only improved in the condition where they were doing just the one leg, but not the other leg. And if the VO2 max improvement was systemic in the heart and lungs and circulatory system, it wouldn't matter which leg. You'd see the improvement with both.
Right.
So that was an elegant way of showing when you can catch your breath more quickly, when you get out of breath less quickly, when you improve your condition, your wind, it's happening in the muscle, not in the heart and lungs.
I'll be damned.
Yeah. And so with the ARX group at this study, we're thinking, well, all of the primary muscles, every muscle you got, was just worked at maximum for 12 weeks on this protocol we had them on, whereas the weight group were using 70% of their 1 rep max, and so they weren't working as intensely, and so that intensity changed the way they handle fuel coming in from the circulatory system, the oxygenated blood entering the working muscle. 12 weeks later, not only are you stronger, but you have greater condition, more metabolic headroom capacity. So that was cool.
That is so fascinating. I did not even think that was possible, but you explained it so eloquently about the one leg cycle. I mean, it's the muscle that's driving VO2 max. It's not your capacity to breathe and your heart's ability to pump.
The problem is not that you're not receiving enough oxygenated blood. When you conk, when you crap out, when you get fatigued, when you deeply inroad, the problem is not with the heart and lungs, a failure to deliver fuel. The problem is that the fuel gets stacked up in the muscle cell. And it's buffering, it's working on it, but eventually it's too much and the whole thing just shuts down. And
so the muscles aren't efficient enough, and that's what it comes down to. What's this second slide here? According to the research team.
So this is, Lance Dalek. This is quoted from the study. So in the discussion section, so that's why we say according to the research team. So these 3 bullet points, and they describe the adaptive resistance training superior to traditional moderate intensity exercise at improving muscular fitness. Relative to moderate intensity resistance exercise, adaptive resistance training elicits larger reductions in body fat percentage and a greater improvement in VO2 max. Dr. Dalek, who is leading the study, highlights the improvement in VO2 max as a substantial finding, as such improvements usually result from cardiorespiratory exercise, not resistance training. And the 3rd bullet point, adaptive resistance training achieves favorable training adaptations in a time-efficient manner, as it required approximately 1/3 of the time of the moderate intensity weightlifting workouts. The average ARX session during the study was 15 minutes in duration, while the average weightlifting session was 45 minutes in duration. And so these were just some big high-level ideas that he put at the end of the study in the discussion section. And one other wrinkle I just thought of I wanted to mention to your listeners because it's important. The test, the 1 rep max and the 5 rep max tests were done on these 10 weightlifting movements. The weightlifting group was practicing the test for 12 weeks. So it wasn't just the raw strength increase. It was also the motor learning from moving the barbells through space. So we would expect them to do better even if both groups got equally strong. The group who's been practicing the test would have a little edge. Yeah.
Rule number 1 of powerlifting: if you want to get better at the bench press, you have to spend a lot of time bench pressing.
Yeah, exactly. And so they were practicing the test and still got blown out by the guys doing the alpha. That's
amazing.
So yeah, it was a really cool. And of course, the classic phrase, more study is needed. So of course we're got some more stuff planned. And but again, it's just strength training. It's just a tool for strength training. It's nothing brand new. People have been strength training a long, long time. And we know from 100 years plus of research what happens to someone who contracts their muscles against resistance. We understand what it provokes. We understand the effects. This is just a different tool for that purpose. So,
but can you really honestly say it's just strength training after seeing the VO2 max changes using this machine?
I would say, yes, it's still strength training. The disconnect is that people don't yet fully understand what strength training can do. It was like you just described, like we would expect them to get stronger, strength training, but who knew that strength training could improve VO2 max and cardiometabolic outcomes? Well, we're now starting to learn more and more about why that is. And it turns out strength training does that in some cases better than some aerobics or things of yesteryear that were promoted for that purpose. So I would say, yes, it's just strength training, but that's downplaying strength training because we're now finding out all the stuff that strength training can do for your brain, for your heart and lungs, for your just the whole system serves seemingly the working muscles. Evolutionarily, it makes sense. You're trying to escape predators, you're trying to mate, you're trying to do all the stuff, and you need the primary skeletal muscles. So it makes sense that a lot of these systems would serve those muscles and would respond favorably when those muscles are stimulated.
Bodybuilding guru who's watching us on YouTube says, "Nice work, sir."
Right on.
He's saying that to you because I'm just sitting here listening. We're gonna take our last commercial break, and when we come back, I want to talk specifically about the machine, how people can get it if they want to learn more about it, pricing, availability, and all that sort of stuff. Okay,
right on.
All right, sit tight. We'll be right back with more Superhuman Radio. If you've listened to this show for any length of time, you know that I have struggled to give up coffee for years. Coffee has destroyed my gut and it's impaired my health. Well, I haven't had coffee in months thanks to a product called Magic Mind. Magic Mind is the first nootropic blend I actually feel working. One shot and I'm good all day long. My memory is crystal clear and I'm able to function and have great focus without coffee or caffeine for that matter. If you want to try a product that really works, if you're like me and you want to give up coffee forever, or you just need something occasionally that will help you lift the brain fog, Magic Mind is your product. I promise you that this product you will feel when you use it. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Magic Mind, all one word, and use the code SHR for a whopping 20% off your first order. If you've listened to Superhuman Radio for any length of time, you know I'm a big proponent of peptides. One of my favorites is GHKCU, the blue copper peptide. It has the ability to repair and regenerate more youthful expression of skin cells, reversing the signs of aging. Restora Cell's Stem Cell Awakening Serum, along with their other products, contains potent formulations of blue copper peptides and only the highest quality organic ingredients. Superhuman Radio listeners can now save 25% site-wide. Go to shrnetwork.biz/blue and use the code SHR25. Remodel your skin today.
Dogs should be powered by fat and protein, not carbs. That's why Visionary Pet makes low-carb, ketogenic dog food for dogs of all breeds and life stages. From kibble to freeze-dried and even low-carb treats, all Visionary Pet recipes are very low-carb, ketogenic, and made with 100% real meat protein. Shop now and use code SHR for 20% off your first order today. Your dog deserves the lifelong benefits of optimal nutrition. Make the switch to Visionary and see why smart dogs eat low carb.
C60, also known as Buckminster fullerene, is the most powerful, most versatile antioxidant in the world. It's been shown in studies to double the lifespan of rodents. We all know the importance of taking antioxidants to slow aging, reduce inflammation, and improve mitochondrial function and energy production. But there are literally hundreds of antioxidants that would cost you thousands of dollars to take every day. I take one. I take C60 from C360 Health. Revive and Rejuvenate are two blends that harness the power of C60. Don't waste another minute. Go to shrnetwork.biz/revive and use the code SHR for 15% off and free shipping inside the United States today.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
Have you been struggling to achieve results in the gym? Trouble sleeping through the night? Overwhelmed with stress or anxiety? Look no further than Infinywell supplements. They have designed products to address specific needs like muscle growth, hormone balance, sleep, and anxiety from the first use. Infinywell helps you live well. Go to shrnetwork.biz/bewell. That's BEWELL and use code SHR20 and start living well today.
This is the Superhuman Channel. Evolution just got kicked up a notch.
Welcome back. We're
Right
talking about the ARX machine. It's wonderful. I have one. I have the I get confused. I have the Alpha.
You've got the Alpha. Yeah, the Silverback.
Okay. I got the Alpha, and it's very effective. I could not imagine training on it for a half hour. Like you would be spent. It wouldn't be productive. You really would just probably start to provoke injury. And really, what I do with it personally is 3 to 4. I guess they're called reps. Really, the reps take about 7 seconds to complete in each direction. So you have 7 in the pressing movement. It's 7 seconds to the concentric and 7 seconds to the eccentric. The same with the back and the same thing with legs. And I can't train legs as hard yet because I have a wonky left knee, but I am able to now train legs on the machine. I couldn't in the beginning because there's a grinding that happens on the outside of my knee because of, believe it or not, foot surgeries that have just totally destroyed my calf. But with that being said, I find that 3 to 4 reps is really like, it's challenging to do 3 to 4 reps. You literally, after 3 to 4 reps, I literally feel exhausted for a little bit. I got to sit there for a while and like catch my breath and kind of revive. So believe me, if you're somebody who's gone to, Orange Theory and you think that that's hard, or you're somebody who trains like a power lifter and you train for an hour and a half, 3 days a week on the bench press, the deadlift, and the squat, I promise you, you're not going to sit on this machine and rule it. You're not. It's going to rule you, and you're going to go, whoa, man, like I've never been challenged like that before. This is really amazing. What's the availability of the machine right now, or the two machines right now, given what's going on with, supply chain and all that sort of stuff?
So there's a few things I'll say. One, our supply chain is, except for the computers, I believe, except for the computers, we're all in America.
Okay.
So that's good. Our stuff isn't sitting on the slow boat from China. And so we've got, and a lot of that, the majority is in Texas even, and we're headquartered out of Austin, Texas. So as far as supply chain, we're still good. We're still going strong. And we, of course, have seen this coming for a while. So we kind of bulk ordered some things last year for this purpose, because we knew things were going to get a little wonky. But our cost of goods, of course, just like the producer price inflation is, of course, affecting us as well. So, but yeah, we had a big rush of orders this past December before the end of the year. And so we're cranking through those, but the machines are available. And I don't know exactly. I talked to the team this morning and I didn't want to misquote the lead time should someone want one. So any pricing availability, I was instructed to just direct people to sales@arxfit.com. And that's sales@arxfit.com. And they'll give you all the most up-to-date information so that I don't, talk out of my nether regions here on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And do you sell more of one machine than the other?
Typically, they're sold in pairs because they're complementary. So there's something, the average, I'll put it this way, the average order size is 1.9 units, which is to say it's mostly 2 at a time with a couple one-offs, like in your case, for instance. So the Alpha and the Omni ensure that, because it's mostly business to business, that's mostly our customers, our business enterprises. So it's, as I say, from grandmothers to linebackers and everybody in between. If you have both machines, you have something for the public, for the masses, for people who need strength training but aren't going to go mess around in a weight room. But you also have something for the people who know their way around a weight room, who are high-level athletes, even elite athletes, who are just tired of getting hurt and want to get those eccentric peaks in safety. And so typically they're distributed in pairs for that reason.
And so it sounds to me like commercial clients are your biggest group of clients right now, right?
Correct. And ever since spring 2020, we've had an uptick in kind of high net worth individuals who want it for the home gym, like Ron or similar. But mostly, you're correct, it's mostly businesses. And so it's like high end boutique personal training spaces. There's a lot of physical therapists and physicians who can now offer.
They have their own studio gym. It's called a studio gym now. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of like biohacking type places that have multiple technologies under one roof. There's a infrared sauna over here. There's cryotherapy over here. There's Carol bikes over here. And instead of a 2,000 square foot weight room, to offer strength training. Now they have these 2 machines, each of which is the footprint of a couch, and they can put that off in a little 150 square foot area in their business and offer what you couldn't even get with a 3,000 square foot weight room because it's using weights. So that's what we see a lot of, is that sort of environment.
So as time goes on and efficiencies take place and you sell more of these commercial targeted units, do you see yourself starting to focus on a consumer specifically? Because when we talk about consumer, you can't ignore price, the
Right.
price point, right? These are 2 investments, these machines, and you
Right.
offer financing as well, right? Isn't that something you do offer?
Not in-house, but we have a third-party group we work with and connect people. Yeah.
Okay.
And so our general idea is, just like any new technology, we hope and expect that it'll become more affordable and higher quality over time. So this is with cars from the beginning up until now. Cell phones, the big brick Gordon Gecko phones, to now all of human knowledge in this little rectangle, and it's a lot less expensive. So that's what we expect in the coming years, is economies of scale. As we continue to grow, we just got our numbers in from 2021, where sales increased by 27%, I believe, and the previous year was another 20-some%. So we're having this strong growth and doing really well. So if we're able to build in these economies of scale, find newer ways of doing things, it's not that we're going to specifically start to target end user consumers. It's that more of that class of people will be able to participate as it becomes more affordable.
Do you find that your individual personal trainers with his own or her own studio gym who invest in these 2 machines and train clients on these 2 machines are able to garner higher rates for their services?
Yeah, it's a huge competitive advantage for a few reasons. One is the strength training portion of what they do with their clients. It used to be the most time consuming and potentially dangerous part of their programming. Now it's so quick and so safe, they can do other modalities in the same bit of time. So they can charge more for their services because they're able now to do more. And there's also the number of clients per unit of time per trainer. So if it's one-on-one training, well, if I have 2 ARX machines, now I can do 2 simultaneous sessions because I'm not worried about range of motion. It's preset in the computer. I'm not worried about speed of motion and having to coach that because it's preset in the computer. And all these things that personal trainers, it's like a pain in my ass to do, is solved. It's a moot point because it's all pre-programmable, so I can focus on higher level things. So it's a better quality of service because the resistance is matched and all that stuff we were talking about before. Higher quality stimulus allows me to do other things in the same space. And so not only can I charge the same or more for my services, I can have a greater client volume and client flow through. And the big paradigm shift that we're seeing, there's 2 types of trainers. One type of trainer is more interested in showcasing their mastery as a trainer than they are in helping as many people as possible in their communities. So many people have this sort of 20th century thought of like the stagecoach drivers of the turn of the previous century. Oh, these internal combustion engines are going to put me out of a job as a stagecoach driver, not realizing that no. With this internal combustion engine, you can now transport more people more efficiently, more safely, more quickly around town. And
Right.
so it's the same deal. I can help more people. I can do what I do better with this new tool in my hands. It's not going to take the job of trainers. And in fact, those who are interested will find after they invest in ARX, they're now able to help people better because the actual service is better, but they're able to help more people more safely and quantify everything and kind of lead the charge and bring people kicking and screaming into the 21st century, of what fitness should be and democratize it for everyone.
So my ARX just has Elisa and I in it, but how many? So I'm thinking, so once you get a client, you set it up, you just go to their name and boom, everything's pre-programmed. It reloads. How many people can you actually put in there?
For a business license, it's unlimited.
Okay.
So it's an unlimited. It just goes up into the cloud and it saves it. So a client walks in, types in their name, puts in what they want to do. All of their data from the previous workouts is in there. They can compete against any set they've ever done. So it's fun sometimes 6 months in to have you compete against yourself from 6 months ago. And of course, you're way stronger and it's fun to do. But yeah, it's dead simple. All the ranges of motion are saved down to the 100th of an inch. And so it remembers you and your chest press. You can change it if you want, but it'll default to what you had last time. And so you don't need to set the positions every time or anything like that.
So yeah, it's fascinating. So that means that the personal trainer doesn't have to stand there and watch you do your sets.
And he doesn't have to take plates off the bar, put the plates on, do the guessing game. How much weight do we want to use this time? She did more than 12 reps last time, so I think I increased by 5%. Is that what I learned in kinesiology school? Like, what do I...
Great point.
So one of the biggest problems I had when I was training people using weights in the before times, back before ARX, was maybe they have it today. Maybe they're having a good day, and I only bumped them up by 5%. And their set goes way too long because I didn't give them enough weight. I robbed them of work they could have been doing. The reverse also happened, where I thought, yeah, you're feeling good today. Yeah, and I put the weight on, and they're done after just a few reps. I didn't give them a good service. I overloaded them. I chose the wrong weight. Oops. So with ARX, you never have that. You're going to get your however many reps you're going to get. And if you have it today, we see numbers. I'm up by 15%, some huge number today. And then there's those workouts where they woke up and saw their shadow, or they woke up on the wrong side of the bed and everything's down by 10, 15%. Okay. That's what you needed today. That's what you got today.
Right.
And I didn't shortchange you. I didn't mess it up. So I feel better as the trainer that the human error is much less.
You know, we talk often about individualized medicine.
Right.
This takes resistance training to an individualized system. It gives you what you need and gives me what I need, and it's the same machine.
Yeah, let's control all the variables so that when the numbers are better, I know it's you and not some artifact of using a weight. And you look back at your notes 6 months ago, well, I did have more reps in this workout, but was I going a little faster in my reps and I was able to get more? And I don't know. It was 6 months ago. I don't remember. But here we have graphical record of every second of every chest press you've ever done. And so we get to see a little more granularly.
So if you are listening to this show and you are a personal trainer, maybe you work at a gym right now, which probably sucks. You know, you can rent yourself a little studio for $200-300 a month, drop these two machines in it, hang your shingle outside, and you could actually be a better personal trainer than anybody else in your city. Think about
it's kind of an idea whose time has come. There's a better tool available now.
Yeah.
And so this solves so many problems, frees up capital and time to do other stuff in addition to the ARX machines and have an integrated facility, because you're not being having space taken up and overhead occupied by a bunch of weights laying around. So.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It really is. Let me put this placard back up and we'll plug the product and website again one more time. We made this one so we can track people who go from the show. If you want to learn more about ARX for yourself, or if you're a personal trainer and you want to step up your game and be able to probably charge more and take less time per client, go to shrnetwork.biz/ARX. And if you do decide to order it, please tell them that you heard about it here on Superhuman Radio, because we want them to know where their clients are coming from. Jim, this is fascinating. Will you come back on when the researcher comes on also?
Don't you threaten me with a good time. I'd love to come back.
Great. Awesome. Thanks for being here, brother. And thanks for helping me get started on mine too.
You're the man.
Very patient. Very patient.
Right on. Well, looking forward to more of the same. And thank you again for the hospitality.
Take care. All right. That's it for today. Now, I am off traveling Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So we just have Monday and Tuesday this week. Tomorrow we have the Blueprint Power Hour with Coach Rob Regish. We'll probably plug the ARX machine on that show tomorrow, because that's an audience that's looking specifically to increase strength gains. But that's it for today. Please share the show. You never know who you're going to help. If you help one person, you'll probably go to heaven. How do you like that? All right. See you tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. Thank you for being here today.